everybody, welcome back to Living Traditions Homestead. Well, it is a chilly start to the day today here in Missouri, but not as chilly as it's going to be the next few days. As you know, we've been a little distracted over the past few weeks with everything that's going on with our house and everything else, and time has just kind of slipped away from us.
Yeah, and come to find out, tomorrow, or actually tonight, is going to be our first hard frost of the season.
Right.
It's kind of snuck up on us. We've known that this is hard frost season, and there are some things that aren't quite ready for the frost, and there are things that aren't quite ready in the greenhouse for winter yet.
Right. Yeah, tonight they're saying it could get down into the mid to low 20s tonight, which definitely means anything that's outside that is frost sensitive is going to get killed tonight. So we've got things to get ready for that. A lot of that is in the greenhouse. We're going to do some final harvesting today. We've got things we need to move indoors. And then we've got things that we just need to get ready, because this is also a wake up that the winter season is about to start as far as what food we grow over winter.
Right. One of the main reasons why we absolutely love having a greenhouse is it allows us to grow some cold weather plants over the winter. And so we don't have to worry about buying those in the grocery store. We absolutely love to have fresh lettuce in the winter, and that's the primary thing that we grow, but we grow lots of other things too.
Yeah, we grow lettuce, we grow turnips, we grow radishes, bok choy,
Right.
All kinds of things that will grow well over the winter. And that's in an unheated greenhouse here in our climate.
We could also grow lots of other things, but right now, because we're so crazy busy, we're just kind of getting the basics in to make sure that we have those over the winter. So we have a pretty busy day today revolving around the greenhouse and getting that ready for winter. We thought it would be perfect to bring you guys along.
So the first thing that we're going to do this morning is something we probably should have done a couple weeks ago,
Yeah.
which is to get the shade cloth off of the greenhouse. These winter plants need full sun because the daylight hours are much shorter, so they need full sun for the time that they do have sunlight. So the first thing today is we're going to take the shade cloth off, and then we're going to move inside the greenhouse and get busy at work. Now the shade cloth that we use on our greenhouse is a 50% shade cloth. That means it blocks out 50% of the sun rays during the summer. This summer, with the extreme drought that we had and the extreme heat that we had, this shade cloth is really what saved our crop in the greenhouse. Overall, our greenhouse plants did way better this summer than our outdoor plants, and I really honestly believe that it's because of the shade cloth. We irrigate in the greenhouse, but we also irrigate out in our garden, so they were both getting plenty of water. But the plants in the greenhouse thrived while the plants in the garden just barely survived. And I think it's because the shade cloth kept that intense heat off of the plants. So today we're going to take the shade cloth off though, because like I said, over winter, you don't want to be blocking the sun rays. In the winter, you want all of the sun's rays to be hitting your plants. Now, for those of you who aren't familiar with how shade cloth works on a greenhouse, it is kept onto the greenhouse with something called wiggle wire. Wiggle wire is looks like this. It's just a wire that's bent. It's got kind of a spring action to it. And all the way along the greenhouse, along both ends and then on the sides, there's a track up here that this wiggle wire goes inside of, and that's what holds or locks the shade cloth onto the greenhouse. So today we're going to take this wiggle wire off, and then we're going to remove the shade cloth, and we'll be all set for winter as far as having full sun coming into the greenhouse. Now the shade cloth is connected over both the front and the back, all the way up and over, and then also connected the lengthwise of each side. Our greenhouse is 20 feet wide by 60 feet long, so there's a lot of wiggle wire to take off in order to get this shade cloth off. So I'm going to start by taking it off on the two ends first, and then we'll work on the sides after that.
Now it's pretty windy today, which is going to make it a little bit interesting taking off this shade cloth. It could easily just pick up the shade cloth and, you know, take it away. We're trying to work with the wind so that the way that the wind is blowing is actually keeping the shade cloth on the top of the greenhouse. Once we get to the other side, it'll be a little bit more tricky. I'll have to hold on to at least one side, one part of the shade cloth as Kevin takes the wiggle wire off. Hopefully I don't blow away, or we both don't blow away like a big sail. We'll get it folded up as quickly as we can. You ready? Well, now that the shade cloth is off, we can move on to some of the things that we need to do inside of the greenhouse. The first thing that we're going to do is get several of our pots ready for replanting. And over the spring and summer, when we've had plants planted in these buckets that we have back here, the soil has kind of settled, and we're going to be adding more soil back, kind of fluffing it up, reintroducing nutrients into the pots, and we're going to be planting some seeds for the winter. Today we're going to be planting mostly lettuce and a little bit of bok choy. Both of those we love having over the winter. Over the next maybe week or so, I might sneak in here and plant a couple other things to get us through the winter, but we'll see how time works itself out for me. So right now we're going to go ahead and get started kind of backfilling these pots to rejuvenate and add more soil and add some more nutrients before we get planting. So in this big container here, we have dumped some potting soil. We want to add some rabbit manure to it, so we're just going to dump some of the dried out rabbit manure that we've had in storage into the potting soil, and then we're going to use an auger to just mix it up in there.
These augers for your cordless drill work really well for mixing things. It's also what we use to help fluff up the soil in the pots. So we'll just kind of spread the rabbit manure over the top of the potting soil, and then I can use the auger to kind of get it down in there.
We really have no magic formula as to how much of the rabbit manure to put in the potting soil. We're just kind of guessing, and it will be a nice addition to the potting soil.
So what we're going to do now is we're going to get all of these buckets here on this side ready to replant. I think we have, let's see, 2, 4, 6, 8, 10, 12 buckets that we're going to replant today. I'm going to go around one at a time with the auger and fluff up what's currently in the pots. We'll take out the drip emitters so that we don't get those tangled up in the drill. And then Sarah will follow behind with the new potting mix. She'll add that to probably the top 6 inches or so, or whatever it takes to fill the pots back up to the top. We'll put the emitters back in, and then we'll be ready to start planting our lettuce and bok choy for today. All right, let's get to work.
All the buckets are prepared and ready for seeds. We're going to start off with lettuce. There are 4 varieties of lettuce that we're going to be planting, and we are going to harvest all of them like a leaf lettuce, even though at least 1 or 2 of them could be grown out into heads. We do like to harvest them as baby leaves. I also absolutely love like the red and kind of purple varieties. So my very favorite red variety is Merlot. We're going to be planting 2 buckets of Merlot, and Lunix, 2 buckets of Lunix, 2 buckets of a green leaf lettuce that has little spots on it called Forellenschluss. And then a new romaine variety for us this year is this crisp mint. Now, I was actually out of seeds, so I made a quick trip up to Baker Creek Heirloom Seed Company, which is only about 40 minutes from us, and bought all 4 varieties of lettuce from them. So that's where these seeds are coming from this year, for this year. So I'm gonna start with the Merlot, and I'm really not gonna use any special planting technique. And it's not gonna be very orderly. I'm just gonna wing it, and that works well for lettuce. Now, you might be hearing in the background the plastic of the greenhouse kind of flapping back and forth. Right now, it actually calmed down for a second, but we're having an extremely windy day, as I told you when we took off the shade cloth, and we have everything closed up right now in the greenhouse, so I'm sorry if you hear the flapping of the plastic, but that's just the way it's going to be. So I just have maybe half a teaspoon of seeds in my hand, which is probably way more than I actually need. And I'm taking just a pinch of them in my fingers at once and just sprinkling them around the soil. I actually really kind of like it when there are just tons of little plants coming all up all over the place. That's probably enough. So I'm just taking my fingers and gently raking back and forth. Just kind of raking those seeds in to the soil. And I'm just going to pat it down pretty gently so that they have good seed to soil contact when I do the watering. And that's really, for lettuce, all you need to do to plant the seed. It's really very easy. Now, lettuce seed, and really all the seeds that we're going to be planting today, will germinate even in cooler or even cold weather. It might take a little bit longer, but because we have this greenhouse and it gets pretty warm in here during the day, I don't have any reservations about planting seeds in this greenhouse this time of year. So we're going to move on to all the rest of the buckets. Actually, I can't put this away. We're going to plant another one, but we're going to plant all the buckets with the same exact procedure. All of the buckets of lettuce have been planted, and now we're going to move on to 2 buckets of bok choy. Now, last year we planted a bok choy. The seeds are from Baker Creek, and it is a baby bok choy, so it only gets about 6 inches tall or something. And it's called Suzhou baby bok choy. I'm probably saying that wrong, but that's how I'm going to say it. And it did really well. We used it in a lot of stir fries, and that's really why we're growing it. We love it as a stir fry green. We also do harvest some and add it into our salads over the winter. But we allowed it to go to flower and then go to seed, and I picked some of the seed pods and picked a lot of the seeds. But what I want to tell you is that these seeds were so viable and so prolific that when I moved the buckets outside to, finish their life cycle, they released a lot of their seeds everywhere, and birds must have flown them places, and the wind must have picked them up, because you guys, we literally have had this baby bok choy growing everywhere ever since then. Like, if there's a seed in a teeny tiny just bit of soil, it is germinating and growing. We have baby bok choy just growing random places. Right now, we have all summer. Over by the pigs, we found some baby bok choy. This whole area of like grass by the hay barn just had tons of it. It's just pretty amazing. Anyway, so if you want that kind of viability with some seeds to save, the Suzhou or Suzhou, I don't know how to pronounce it, that variety of baby bok choy was amazing. So I do have some of those pods here. I'm going to harvest some of the seeds out of them to plant into these buckets. So these are the seed pods dried, and when you just split them in half open, you'll see the seeds inside of there. let me put some in my hand. They're small. See how small they are? Well, we are going to plant those babies, and they're hopefully going to do really well for us over this winter. So that's the first type of bok choy we're going to be planting. The second bok choy is new to us. We haven't planted this before. It is called Chinese Yellow Heart. We're going to be planting that just to see how it goes. Now, this is also from Baker Creek. It says that this variety is super cold hardy, and it's also a baby bok choy. So we're going to be planting those two varieties. So I'm just going to quickly take out more of these seeds from these little pods, and then I'll get started planting them. Okay, so the bok choy, I'm going to just make a tiny little indentation in the soil here, and I'm going to plant them about every 6 inches. When I harvested the seeds, I thought for sure that they were going to be about the same size as a radish seed, but they're much smaller. I was surprised about that. And I probably made maybe a 1/2 inch indentation, maybe a little bit more, but they don't have to be very far into the ground because they are teeny tiny seeds and they clearly didn't need much soil covering them to come up everywhere on the property. So I'm just gonna drop a couple seeds in each hole. And then just gently cover them up. That's how we're going to plant those. Well, that is all the planting that we're going to do for today. I might sneak in here and plant some other things a couple days from now or something. But today we need to move on to some harvesting that we need to have done before the big freeze comes tonight.
The first thing that we're going to harvest today are cherry tomatoes. You guys, if there is one thing that exceeded my expectations in this greenhouse this year, it was tomatoes. And specifically the cherry tomatoes. We've been harvesting cherry tomatoes off these same plants since May. And they just keep coming. I mean, look at how many ripe tomatoes we still have. And they still taste absolutely perfect. A lot of times out in the garden, you may still be getting tomatoes later in the season, but they're not as good as they were, early in the season. That doesn't seem to be the case with these cherry tomatoes in the greenhouse. They are every bit as flavorful today as they were back in May. But I am a little bit afraid that the temperatures tonight are going to kill these plants. So we are going to harvest everything that's currently ripe. I'm not going to pull the plants because there is that off chance that being inside of the greenhouse, they may survive these next few nights. And really, it looks like we're going to have about 3 cold nights where it's going to get down into the 20s. And then we're going to warm back up. We're going to be into the mid 70s for highs and back into only like the 50s for the lows. So if these plants can survive the next few nights, we may get another month or so out of them. But I don't want to take any chances with the ones that are currently ripe. So we're going to harvest all of those today. I think we're going to have at least a bucket full. Look it up here. We'll see. But you guys, there is nothing better than having a tomato season that lasts, the better part of 6 months. So the 2 varieties that we did this year are Juliet. They are over here. They're a grape tomato, so they're like an oblong-shaped tomato. They are a hybrid. And then the other variety that we did are these round ones called Large Red Cherry. These are an heirloom. And to be honest, in the past, these Juliets have always been my favorite. We've been growing these for a few years now. These were my favorite because they don't split. But you guys, these large red cherries didn't split either. And the fact that they are an heirloom and we can save seeds from them has elevated them to be my new favorite. So this is a variety that we're going to keep doing for sure every year because we can save seeds from them. All right, we're going to get busy harvesting. We'll see how many we can get. And then I'll have a good snack for later tonight. And for right now. This system for trellising the tomatoes worked out really well this year too. It's just a single string from the base of the plant up to the top of the greenhouse, and it worked out perfectly. Now they're starting to fall over just a little bit, some of the lower branches, but that's honestly only because as the summer went on and we got a little tired, we didn't keep up with it quite as well. But I mean, look how tall these plants are, you guys. I actually need a ladder to go up and pick the ones at the tops of the plants. So this system worked out really, really well. Well, I'd say that I was pretty close. I thought we'd have a full bucket full of tomatoes, and that is pretty darn near a full bucket of tomatoes. I'd say it's probably a good 10 pounds worth of cherry tomatoes. I'm really happy about that. I'll get these in the house, probably put them into a few containers so they're not so stacked full. And these will last quite a while yet. I'll be eating as many tomatoes as I want for another, I'd say, few weeks at least. The next thing that we need to move on to is our sweet potatoes. This year we decided to try sweet potatoes here in the greenhouse in tubs. I think we did about 4 tubs worth of sweet potatoes, so we're going to go dig those up. The plants are starting to die back, and with the cold that we're getting tonight, we just want to get those dug up and see what we ended up with. So let's head down to the other end of the greenhouse to get the sweet potatoes dug up. So I guess I was wrong. We did 3 tubs worth of sweet potatoes, and I don't know. I have no idea what to expect. You guys, we've had high hopes for sweet potatoes in the past, and every year they've been pretty much a failure. So we're going to try again this year. Now, probably about, I don't know, 2 months ago, 3 months ago, we had what I think was a groundhog get in here and eat most of the leaves off of the plants. But they really came back nicely after that, and they put on a lot of new leaves, and they kept growing well. So I don't think that that would affect how the potatoes themselves did. So I don't know, all we can do is start digging with our hands and see what we have underneath the ground.
We also don't know what variety of sweet potatoes these are. I did not start my own slips this year because I had not intended on growing sweet potatoes, but we were at the farmer's market and saw somebody with sweet potato slips. They looked good, so I bought them, but they didn't know what kind they were. So we're not going to be able to tell you that, and we're not going to know. So if they're great, then we'll just have to grow slips off of them for next year. So let's just start harvesting these and see what we get.
Well, hopefully that's not it.
Yeah, I see some others underground.
Yeah, there are some others under there.
Hey, those aren't bad. I'll take those.
Yeah, they're
not gigantic, but I'll take them. Let's put them out here on the ground in the sun. Okay, these aren't gigantic, but they're better than some of them that we've harvested, and they're definitely better than nothing. Teeny tinies.
Yeah, some little bitty ones.
Those don't really count.
I think that's about it on this, on that first plant.
Okay. Okay, not terrible. I've got some little ones off of here.
Yeah.
Now I know that this soil is really loose, so that shouldn't be an issue for them growing wide or fat. Well, this is the harvest that we ended up with, and even though they're not like gigantic, big, baking sweet potatoes, although some of them are pretty nice.
Yeah.
I am very pleased with the amount of them that we got out of 3 buckets, and I think even the smaller ones I can use to make like sweet potato soup and kind of blend it all up in the Vitamix, and you won't even notice that the skins are blended in there.
Yeah, I think all in all, I'm very happy, and you know what? It was really easy to harvest them, which in the past, harvesting sweet potatoes for us, because our ground gets so hard, it's been something that we've actually dreaded doing.
Right.
This was fun. We could do more buckets next year, and I'd say do 6 or 8 buckets next year, and I think
I'd like
to
do that. You know, and in general, we don't eat a ton of sweet potatoes, so this might be the perfect amount for us and our family for the winter.
Right. The last thing that we need to do in the greenhouse today is with our citrus trees. I've been wanting to give you guys an update on the citrus trees for quite a while, and today is finally the day, because we're going to have to move them into the house starting tonight. So, but I want to show you how they're doing. First of all, I'll review, for those of you who haven't been watching since spring. This last spring, I decided I was going to try growing some citrus trees here in the greenhouse. When we lived in Arizona, we had amazing citrus. We had a ton of tangerines and oranges and everything that you can imagine. But since moving to Missouri, obviously it's too cold here to grow citrus trees outside, so I thought, well, maybe I can find some varieties that would do okay in the greenhouse over the summer, but stay small enough to move into the house in the winter, and that's exactly what we did. So this tree here is a key lime tree, and this one is actually starting to produce already. This year, I mean, not a ton, but we have 3 key limes. You can see one right here. This one I think is actually about ready to harvest. I might give it like another week after we move it indoors. And there's another one over here. This one's still a little bit smaller, so maybe it's got another couple weeks. And then I actually thought those were the only 2 until I came out here today, and I noticed that there's a 3rd one up here. So that's exciting. I mean, it's not enough to make a key lime pie or anything like that, but it's enough to add a little flavor to a glass of water. And hey, for right now, I'll take that. But you can see that this tree is also starting to blossom again right now. There's a ton of new blossoms coming on, and there's actually even some little bitty limes right here. And you can see a bee on there pollinating everything. Now, I do believe that these trees are self-pollinating, so they should do fine even in the house over winter if they start to blossom in the house. We don't need to, invite any bees in the house or anything like that. Now, this other tree, which hasn't produced anything yet, well, it did have one on early in the spring, but it fell off. This is a Satsuma tangerine tree, and the tree itself is doing great. It's actually bigger than the key lime tree, but like I said, it hasn't produced anything yet. It did have some blossoms when we first got it last spring, but it's not starting to blossom again now yet. I'm hoping that maybe it will once we get it in the house. So both of these are going to get moved inside. They'll stay inside all winter. We have a nice sunny spot by our sliding glass doors that we're going to move these. And that is the last thing that we're going to do today in the greenhouse to get ready for this cold snap tonight. Well, like we said, we've got the perfect place picked out just inside the sliding glass doors, but you guys, we're not quite ready to show you guys the inside of the house yet. So that is where today's video is going to end. Real soon, we'll be giving you guys a tour of the inside of the new house, but we want to wait just a little bit longer.
You guys, we're so glad that we had an opportunity to do some work in the greenhouse with you guys in preparation for our first hard freeze. We're excited to show you in the house. We're excited for the things that we just planted to start growing. And we're so glad that you guys have joined us today. You guys, if you're enjoying our videos, we'd sure love for you to hit the subscribe button below if you're not already a subscriber. And remember that the best way that you can help us here on the homestead is just to share our videos on your social media. Until next time, thank you so much for stopping by our homestead. Take care and God bless.
God bless.